Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creative thinkers and doers. It is I, the mayor, live, not really, in the mayor's office, hanging with people who are doing the dang thing. In fact, my guest today and I were connecting about what it means for the next step for entrepreneurs. Like we know, most people listen to this podcast right now have a business or they're contemplating jumping into the world of entrepreneurship. It is not for the weak, and growth can be the biggest test of them all. Please welcome from Merit Investment Bank, Craig Dickens. How's it going, sir?
Going well. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited. This will be fun.
Yeah, I hope it is. We were talking about this before we went live. You do a bunch of things. I mean, I got to be honest with you. As a CEO, how many plates are spinning right now?
Oh, boy. You know, I guess I'm going to defer, right? I've got a lot of great teammates, too, that handle some of those plates. So it's not all on my plate. So it's all good. We managed to keep them all as a team up in the air. But on a Friday afternoon, right, you know, you look back and you go, all right, how many did we keep in the air this week? And it's always fun to kind of reflect on that. So it's all good.
Gotta celebrate your wins. Yeah. Also, I want to say the stereotype is always the worried CEO with the evil board looming over them, but I bet that's not the case here.
I'll tell you what, look, we treat people how, we train people how to treat us, right? So, for those entrepreneurs that have a board or a bank and all that stuff, your first job is to figure out that evil board, how to turn that board into the no turkeys rule, right? And have them help you, right? That's what they're there for. So we do some work on behalf of some of our clients and the entrepreneurs out there to how to manage that relationship. So it's board season. We got another quarter coming up. So hopefully that's a good word for a couple of folks out there.
Of course. So you're known as an expert in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and that is something which I know is beyond my realm of comprehension. But I got to ask, how did you decide that was a path you wanted to learn more about and go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, I guess, let me work backwards. This isn't a 12-step meeting, but I am a deal junkie, right? So in my career, I worked for corporate for about a dozen years. And I had a boss who came to me and said, you are such a visionary. You have all these ideas, and sometimes I feel like, we put a bit in your mouth and keep you from doing certain things that could be really good for our company, which kind of says to me that you're an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, thank you for that. I'm going to take that in. And then boom, I went and did my own thing. Yeah. So 14 companies later and 22 acquisitions on those companies, I kind of learned the hard way that being a deal junkie, if you're an entrepreneur that chases shiny objects, some of those deals went really wonderful. Some didn't go so great. And so, I've got some plaques on the wall and some scars on the back from that learning. So that's kind of who I was. And then I decided when I sold my last company to help other entrepreneurs figure that out and not pay the dumb tax, right, of the mistakes. So that's really how that all got started. It started with, kind of my DNA. And now we're just kind of taking it to the next level and professionalizing it and helping other people grab the brass ring of selling their company or buying their competitor.
Yeah, that just seems awfully scary for people who decide to jump in on their own. They have their own business, they have their own idea. Maybe they even lock down the business aspect of their business where a lot of people fail. But the idea of acquiring another organization, even if it is a competitor or even if it's a different segment, makes it seem unattainable. What do you do to maybe ease a new entrepreneur into that whole world of buying their competitors if need be?
Yeah, so that's a great and insightful question. So many people, just wrestle with that. It starts with your why. What do you want to achieve? And many entrepreneurs, the grind is real, and the startup to $1 million in revenue to $10 million, whatever that is. But, organic growth is tough. And the bigger you grow, the harder it is, right, to achieve those organic growth numbers. So a lot of people think M&A is the easy button. Well, if I'm a $10 million company and I can buy a $5 million company, boom, instant add water and we're there. But it's not without risk, right? Because you're buying somebody else's baby. You're buying somebody else's culture. You're buying somebody else's people, and you're buying someone else's risk because their business every day they're in the marketplace is open to risk. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. But I have found both in my career and with other entrepreneurs that the rewards if you think about as an entrepreneur or CEO in particular, growth and startup was one particular toolbox that you kind of developed. And then managing and running and, people and building teams is another. Well, some people approach it like, look, I'm not a complete CEO unless I've acquired and really kind of doubled the size of our company, right, by doing acquisitions as well. So, it really depends what your why is, circling it back to that. What do you want? Do you want the growth? Do you want the plaque on the wall? What is it that you're looking for? And if you work with somebody who can really craft your thinking and hone it in so that there's strategic value, it's a great way to accelerate the growth of your company and bring things from the outside. You might be interested in buying tech, right? If you're a low tech company and somebody else is maybe small, but they have great tech, a lot of reasons to pursue M&A.
Yeah. You said you're a deal junkie. Kind of a personal question here. What was a deal that you made that on paper would look like the most out beyond the pale deal that you wouldn't even say yes to, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot.
Wow. Personally or advising? Yeah, personally. So I did a deal where at the very early stages and of what's called the home meal replacement market, basically somebody cooks you dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you come in and, and back in the day, it was, a bunch of women would come in, bring glasses of wine, they'd make 12 meals and freeze it, right?
Right.
So I did a deal at the early stages of that, not knowing, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, why would someone ever pay for that? Or why would a bunch of folks want to come in and actually do the work, right? Wouldn't you want to just go out to eat? Well, turned out to be a great little investment and turned that over within 2 years. But on paper, nothing made sense. And now there's dedicated companies that do that. There's every time you walk into the supermarket, there's a whole section of pre-made meals that you have to cook. There's chains, Papa Murphy's, that you still have to cook it, but we're going to make it, right? So it kind of developed that whole segment of the market that was previously undeveloped. So that one didn't make sense on paper, but it was very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just gotta see the vision before that, doing it yourself, right? The great beyond, the great void.
Exactly.
So we talk about your portfolio now. As being the head of Merit Investment Bank, you do have a list of clientele. Like, what kind of clients are drawn to your business? Which ones do you find yourself helping out more than others, if any?
Yeah, we love, and given my entrepreneurial background, and a lot of our investment bankers are former entrepreneurs, we love that journey of a founder-led, or even if there's a, absentee owner and he's got a management team or she's got a management team that is really kind of in the thick of things. How that usually shows up is clients of ours are typically in the 20 million to 100 million in revenue. Although I will say the exception to that is tech companies, because sometimes we might have a 5 million ARR type company, annual recurring revenue company, that seems small, but those things trade for 60, 70 million. So it's definitely a nice client to have. So, but, these aren't institutional, they've taken capital from private equity and all that. So these are folks that put their pants on one leg at a time. And those are the people that we love to help. I think part of that is because it's not only the entrepreneurial DNA, but you also have to spend a little bit more time educating them as to the process and the rewards. So there's a little stewardship of the relationship there, which we have some fun with.
How has the relationship changed, if any, post COVID? Are we post COVID? Are we still in COVID?
Well, on the technical side, there are still investors in companies, buyers of companies that are asking, hey, show me your 2019 financials, because that was the last normal year before COVID. But yeah, it's interesting, through that time period, there were obvious winners during COVID. There were neutral players that just kind of maintained, and then there were big losers, right, in that COVID shutdown and all that. So it really depends company by company. But I think as it relates to the human aspect of it, I think we have a lot of baby boomers in particular that are like, man, I've been through, 3 recessions. I've been through COVID. I've been through whatever this growth recession was a couple of years ago. that are tired and they want to see a different outcome. So COVID took a lot out of people, on many fronts, right? Both human level and business level. So I think all of us are glad to be done with it, right?
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I just felt like from the outside looking in, it just felt like the money was flowing like a Martin Scorsese movie 15, 20 years ago. And that seems to be a little bit dried up, more measured, more about the
Yep.
risk assessment of it all. And I wonder how it might be for you when a client's like, hey, I want to do business with you. We may not have the resources we may have had 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. We deal equally with sellers and buyers, and the consumer market was a flush with cash. So businesses that catered to consumers tended to do well, and the buyers were still buying in those markets. And nowadays, with the inflation and cost of living and everything else going on, right, and interest rates being high, the consumer's under a little bit of pressure. All those savings or that they put aside when they got the PPP money and all that, that's changed the market, right? So it's really kind of interesting the effect of those. And at the same time, you get banks aren't lending as much.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of tightened down a little bit as well. So I guess the bottom line of that is there's never a dull moment. And for the CEOs out there, picking up the phone and calling your investment banker and saying, hey, what's going on in the market? Is now a good time, right? Just from a free advice standpoint, because we do get to see it all, right? So it could be valuable to some of your audience.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe this might be helpful as well. A lot of times on the other side, the cost of success, or as if DJ Khaled would say, suffering from success. You have an idea, it grows, you're liking it for whatever reason, you're ready for something new, ready for a new chapter. There have been literature written about this, but I want to ask from your perspective, what are some major pitfalls small business owners come across when they're trying to draft an exit strategy?
Great question. Really knowing your why and kind of reverse engineering your exit is, and that's all preparation and perspiration. That's all the hard work, because, everybody dreams about I want to sell to Microsoft, right? It's like, well, they only buy billion-dollar companies these days, but let's reverse engineer how you want to do that and why you want to do it. That's going to be the important work. And that's what a lot of folks, as they take that first step, you almost have to say, all right, what's my company worth? Mm-hmm. What's it worth in the open market? And there's two components of worth, right? What you built, like your revenue and your earnings, and then the risk. How risky are those revenue and earnings in the future? Because a buyer, in order to pay you what it's worth, he's gonna or she's gonna want to know that it's going to keep going, right? That you're not going to fall off a cliff. So sometimes the work that owners need to do is de-risking their company to make it more valuable, which means, if you've got one supplier that gives you all your supplies, right, you might need to think about two, right? Or if you have one customer that keeps throwing business at you, but all of a sudden you wake up one day and now 50% of your revenue is concentrated, now you're not practically sellable, right? So there's a lot of kind of levers to pull as you think about that. And, you also want to kind of go to your CPA and say, what are we doing from a tax standpoint? You want to go to your estate planning attorney and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my business. What can I do? Because look, Uncle Sam is going to be involved in this transaction one way or another. Right. And you're going to want to minimize that and do the planning, do the hard work up front versus, hope for an amazing exit so that you never have to work again. So that would be my advice.
I have a selfish question. Is there a metric that maybe a business owner may not be taking a lot of stock into, that a eventual suitor is looking at? They may get caught with your pants down if you don't really have those numbers presented?
I think there's, it depends how sophisticated the buyer is, but at the end of the day, it's all about free cash flow, right? So, a lot of business owners prize growth and they prize revenue, but in that maturity, as you mature as a leader and as your company matures, what's the old saying? And I may botch it here, but it's, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. So that free cash flow is like everything, because most transactions today are done with a mix of equity and debt. So you got to service that debt. If somebody pays you 10 million bucks for your company, chances are there's going to be 5 million in debt that the company has to service. So it's all about cash flow. So, while we like to take as much out of the company, while we like to expense things so that we don't have to pay Uncle Sam, I write off my boat, my country club, whatever it is, my ATVs, they're a business expense. You can't really do that when you're planning on exiting. So just really getting smart about those things and focusing on your earnings, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the key metric that all buyers are going to do the math on.
Yeah. Oh no, do the math. I can't imagine doing that. So I gotta ask.
It's interesting. Back to your business, right? I saw a deal today for a podcast that's on the market, and it's a pretty successful podcast. And again, it wasn't necessarily, yes, you've got impressions, you've got eyeballs, you've got subscriptions, you've got all those things, you've got sponsored dollars. At the end of the day, it's how profitable is it, right? So it was pretty cool to see that just before this.
Yeah, I can't imagine how many microphones I expensed, even ones I haven't used. I kid. Don't do that. Uncle Sam will look after you. So as a CEO, I got to ask though, how do you develop and maintain a culture? A lot of times people who resent their jobs look up at CEOs as, oh, you and your ivory tower, you don't understand how it is to answer emails. And what do you do to make sure you're in the trenches with the rank and file?
Yeah, great question. It's, it's hard, right? And I'll be flat out, I'm a lifelong learner, and I don't claim to have all the wisdom, right? I've certainly made my share of mistakes, but there is a lot read and written about it in the marketplace. You always got to be a student of the game and student of people. And, I'm getting up there. I got a few gray hairs, and the people that we're hiring in the analyst or associate position, et cetera, it's most of the time they're really, really smart. They're smarter than me, and they know how to work their way around something, right? Whereas I used to grind my way through it. They're like, oh, use this tool and that tool and that tool. Boom, done, right? And can I go to lunch now? So it's really cool to see how smart they are. But it's a different kind of set of metrics, accountabilities, sensitivities, right? So it's been fun kind of learning how to relate. Keeps me young. And but definitely, when you talk about value, any management team, it's all in the team. It's not me. I can only do so much, and I'll get swamped after a while trying to do everything. It's developing that team and that relationship and culture so that we can appreciate our differences, but by the same token, we can all achieve in the same direction. To me, that's kind of the sweetest reward. If you can build a well-functioning team, and a team's like a family, right? It's never going to be perfect, and you have to kind of work with each other and communicate to build it. So I know that's a lot of words to say very little, but it's all about the team.
Okay, I'm crossing pizza parties off the list. Yeah, good to
I mean, hey, look, we do a little bit of everything. We have pizza parties. We've even taken the team to a handgun range, just you got a little aggression, work it out. And, there's a few people like, oh, I've never touched a gun in my life. I'm like, cool. I'm not forcing it on you, but it's like, wow, that was the best experience. That was so much fun, right? So you got to keep experimenting and be curious, right? Just continue to be curious about each other and what keeps it fun.
That's really cool. Understanding that you can always have fun different ways besides the stereotypical, like, well, here's a $10 gift card to Starbucks. That's who no one really knows who you are, what you're about. Like, here's a coffee coupon.
Exactly. Yeah, we went and played bocce ball. Like, half of us have never played bocce ball in our lives, but it was a heck of a good time, and there was beer involved, so it's all good.
Oh yeah, this Brooklyn kid, I'm kind of jealous. I wish I was there. Craig Dickens, Mayor of Investment Bank. I got a couple questions for you, kind of fun questions before you wrap this up here on New Amsterdam Rain. I'm sure you're down to play. Do you believe in days off? And if so, how do you celebrate?
Absolutely. Celebrate, that could be a personal question, but it's, there's a couple things I do on the business front. I take myself out to a retreat, just me. And I go to a great resort and I camp out for 2 days and I eat really good food and I just think about the business, but in a setting that just free of distractions and all that. From a days off standpoint, I got 5 kids, 3 are out of the house, 2 are at home. So a lot of times days off are around spending some quality time with them.
Yeah.
And then, obviously some personal hobbies thrown in there just for fun. And just sometimes decompressing, right? Just
Yeah.
kind of chilling. Chilling is good.
Yeah. Telling his personal hobbies like breakdancing. Or I'm kidding. You have to answer that
I
question.
used to. Hey, I'm a kid of the '80s, right?
Let's
And I,
go.
hey, look, I grew up in New York, so I know, the originals, right?
Heck yeah, man. Rock steady.
That's right. That's right.
uh, do you have a travel bucket list? And if so, what places are still on it?
Oh wow, yeah. I'm going to the Italian Riviera here in October. It's a little bit off season. It's that one's definitely fun. I have never been to Australia. I've got friends over there. I mean, that is definitely on the list. Australia, New Zealand, and I've never been to. Keeping in that direction, I've never been to like Tahiti or any of those kind of islands. So
Yeah.
definitely, they will definitely show up in the next few years.
Oh, you'll definitely love Italy. It was a lot of fun when I went. I went for work. I realized I can't travel anymore. Like I need to have a job, and so if it's a gig, I was DJing a wedding. I totally ate every Italian food, everything I ever
Nice.
made. It was great. Shout
Those are
out
some of the
to
best trips, right? Where it's paid for through business. It's all good. You tack a few days up front, a few days at the end.
yeah. People don't know, man. Like when the job was done, I'm walking around like, what do I do with myself now?
That's right. That's right.
Do you consider yourself self-made? Why or why not?
So I'm a man of faith. So I know where I came from. When it comes to business and life, I've made enough mistakes to call myself self-made. But again, just as the team is important, there have been so many awesome people that have poured into my life that, I can't take credit for that. So, have I pulled myself up from my bootstraps? For sure. But, I got a brilliant and amazing wife and family, and they lift me up, right, when I trip and fall. And, so, and the rest of the credit goes to God.
Yeah. It's an open question for that reason. It's kind of cool to see how everyone interprets that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone collects something. What do you collect?
It's changed over the years. People joke with me with 5 kids, you're collecting kids, but, and there was a time when, I had a job. I was really fortunate where I played a ton of golf. So I had one of those like golf ball from every course I've ever played things. So although I'll be honest with you, and cars and things, but, the older I get, and not to sound like an old guy, the less interested I'm in collecting things. I'm more interested in collecting experiences. So I will gladly say no to something material and say, all right, let's go here, or let's experience that, or let's do that. So collecting the memories, I think, is becoming a little more sweeter for me over time.
Well, what if it was a golf ball from a New Zealand golf course?
Yes.
Just
Yeah, that's I can do the double bottom line there. Play golf in New Zealand would be good. Yeah.
And lastly, this is actually the most difficult question we ask everyone. What is your favorite junk food?
Well, that is the hardest question because I am definitely a junk food connoisseur. I would say, and maybe just because it's been on my mind recently, but the old school puffy Cheetos.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
orange finger, stick to your mouth, like worse than braces kind of stuff. I mean, that's got to take the cake for me.
I mean, you were from New York, so we had cheese doodles. Remember cheese doodles?
That's right.
From
That's right.
Wise? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
the
was
new ones, the crunchies, the
yeah.
on fire. I'm like, no, give me that puffy, melt in your mouth, stick to your teeth kind of cheese doodle. That's what I
Just
want.
wreck the roof of your mouth.
Indeed.
We didn't know any better. Craig, has been a lot of fun hanging out with you, learning more about you and your business. Now, here's the fun part. If someone wants to learn more about what you do, how would they connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest. Craig Dickens. Twitter, I am at M&A, as in mergers and acquisitions, M&A exit on Twitter. And then email, kind of old school, is craig.dickens@meritinvestmentbank.com.
Wow, easy peasy, fresh and squeezy. And hopefully someday I'll give you the call and say, hey, look, I'm ready to get out. Maybe you can help me out.
Outstanding. Let's have that chat. It'll be fun.